Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses today.
Wait, listen.
Professor Sarin, you're a professor at Yale Law School?
I am.
Okay. And I see you've been pretty active on Twitter. I'm looking at one of your tweets from a few months ago, October 30th, 2023. I'd like to read it to you. The House Republican stance is, I kid you not, support for Israel as long as we make it easier for people to cheat on their taxes. End quote. Did you tweet that?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. How many Republican congressmen or women did you talk to before you made that statement?
I was reacting to the fact that, and we've talked about it actually.
Yes, ma'am, but first, if you could, how many Republican congresswomen or congressmen did you talk to?
I didn't talk to them. I actually was just reacting to the legislation that was proposed.
You didn't talk to any of them?
No, sir.
Before you said that every single one of them supports Israel only if it is made easier for people to cheat on their taxes?
I actually don't think that every single one of them believes
that.
But
that's what you said.
But I do think that the legislation passed by the House reflects a statement of purpose that in order to support Israel, it's important
but I'm looking at what you said.
Allow taxpayers to be able to cheat on their taxes.
You said that every single House Republican, none of whom you talked to, would only support Israel if it was made easier for Americans to cheat on their taxes. Now, you said that,
Senator
and you didn't talk to any of them.
Senator Kennedy, I am struck by, and perhaps this is something on which we agree, that it is incredibly important to support Israel. It is also incredibly important to make sure that taxpayers at the top of the distribution
we agree on Israel, but
share.
I just can't believe you would say this about members of Congress. It's pretty pejorative, vicious. Let me finish. Without talking to them. I mean, would it be possible for somebody to support a reduction to the IRS budget because they simply believe the federal government ought to have a balanced budget? Would that be a fair position? Would that be a principled position?
Except that actually doesn't work with respect to defunding the IRS.
But would it be a principled position?
It wouldn't be an accurate position because defunding
But you don't know because
IRS
you didn't talk to anybody, did you?
Well,
you just said it.
Defunding the IRS, the CBO agrees, everyone who's testifying today agrees that that is going to add to deficits, not reduce them.
Could it be that a House Republican wanted to reduce the IRS's budget because they think that the IRS is a model of inefficiency and shouldn't be rewarded with more money? Well, could that have been a possibility, a motivation for the way they voted?
Kennedy, I so appreciate that question because the reality
could that have been a motivation for the way they voted?
And it relates very closely to what Senator
could that have been a motivation for the way they voted?
That you've seen an inefficient
could that have been a motivation?
If you allow the witness to answer, you might get your answer, Senator Kennedy.
It frankly couldn't have been.
It could or couldn't?
It could not have been.
How do you know you didn't talk to him?
Because the reason why you've seen
you just
IRS
made this statement that every Republican in the House supports Israel only if it has been made easier for people to cheat on their taxes. Could it be that maybe a House member thought that, well, the more money we spend, the more deficits we have, and the more deficits we have, the more pressure is put on interest rates, and the higher interest rates go, the more it hurts the poor. Could that have been the position of one of the House Republicans?
Senator Kennedy,
could it have been theoretically?
Couldn't have been, because everyone
it couldn't have been?
It frankly couldn't.
How do you know you didn't talk to him?
Well, I know that everyone agrees, including witnesses across the aisle, including CBO, including every single tax expert that has contemplated this question, that defunding the IRS makes deficits worse, not better. And so this is a deficit
I just find it,
measure.
Professor, appalling. Appalling that you would make a statement like this, a vicious statement like this, without talking to a single person about whom you made the statement. And I'm going to remind you, you know, you can only be young once, but you can always be immature. And you ought to think about that.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Let me just say that I think that the treatment of witnesses is beginning to degrade a bit here. And I'm going to strike some commentary if it continues down this road. I think personal insults to witnesses are not appropriate, and I will not be tolerant of that in this committee.
Well, could I respond, Mr. Chairman? You're going to
fire away. I think you just called a
you're going to do what you got to do, but I'm going to continue to use my time. You bring witnesses as you're entitled to, and some of them are very good. Some of them have the credibility of Michael Avenatti, and I'm going to use my time when I think it's appropriate to test.
And I'm going to use my authority as chairman
to test credibility, witnesses' credibility. So you do what you got to do, and I'm going to do what I got to do.
Good behavior in
But if that is meant to bully me, you're talking
no attempt
to the wrong
bully
guy.
you.
Okay.
No attempt to bully you, none at all. It's to keep the witness and the committee free of bullying.
I'm entitled to test their credibility, and I think one of our witnesses just got tested.
I hope I passed, Senator. Thank you.
You didn't.
There are other views on that. Senator Braun.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions are going to be focused on when you spend money like this bill does, what kind of return on investment are you going to get from it? The pro forma from the CBO says that we'll be spending $80 billion over 10 years, and we're going to be generating $180 billion. So you divide that net by 10 years, it's $10 billion a year. So I want to go back to the chart that I think is most important. Senator Johnson had it here earlier, is the stubbornness in our current system of regardless of what you do based upon tax rate, we end up over 63 years here generating basically the same percentage of our GDP in revenue. To me, that should be the given that we're dealing with here. And of course, we're currently running $2 trillion deficits annually. The White House has put out $42 trillion to be in debt in 5 years, 52 in 10 years. So this is a rounding error in terms of what it's going to do to save money. That, I think, is a given, and that is a very small percentage of our total problem. And then I want to talk about the trajectory of where we've come from just the short time I've been here, where we had structuralized trillion-dollar deficits annually, and now we structuralized trillion-dollar deficits every 6 months. So we've got issues that go way beyond.
Senator Braun, can I just interject for 1 second on a matter of committee business? I've got to get to the Finance Committee now. Senator Kaine has kindly agreed to close the committee. So you have your time, and my apologies for interrupting, but I wanted to let everybody know what's happening here and that Senator Kaine will be taking over the gavel for the remainder of the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to hear from all the witnesses what we really do to fix the problem. This is not something that is going to measure in any way. And even when you look at the impact from the tax cuts of 2017, that was pro forma'd at $150 billion per year over 10 years, $1.5 trillion. The CPO, which I was working with them, was getting very close to showing that when you do lower rates, you put a little less into the Treasury out of the gate, but then economic growth has to be taken into consideration. So what are the ways that we actually get our budget back in order? Set this aside because it's a rounding error in terms of what it's going to do or won't do. I'd love to hear ideas on how we get our hands around something that is going to explode over the next 5 and 10 years. And this is not going to make any difference. And it's an estimation, too. There's no guarantee that we'll even get those savings. I'll start here with Mr. Edwards and then go across the panel.
So I agree with what you're saying there. I think that increasing enforcement on high-end folks, maybe you triple or quadruple the auditing, you maybe get 10 or 20 more billion a year, but that's only 1% of the federal deficit. In my view, we need large spending cuts. I suggested some spending cuts in my testimony. For entitlements, let's at least start with cutting benefits like Social Security just for the very high end. There's no reason why Bill Gates needs to get Social Security. We can't afford that anymore. And secondly, I would say that we have to revive federalism in this country. Federal government spends over $1 trillion a year subsidizing state and local governments. I mean, the ACA match for Medicaid is a 90% match. We can't afford that anymore. Let's cut back these matching payments to the states. In my view, get the federal government out of areas like K-12 education that the states are really responsible. So reviving federal.